I could see Sophia Smith more as like a true nine. When she's in Portland and she's having success, she's better when she's facing up goal. On the right-hand side, to your point, like she kept dribbling out of bounds. Her first touch was really difficult for her to take towards goal. She's speedy and she's fast, so put her in the best position where she's been the most successful, which is in the middle of the field.
There are going to be players that now get hurt because of this, because these players, this coach is way more important to the league than this player and this coach. And they're just going to move on from players. And that's my whole thing. And I'll always be an advocate for players' rights, because that's the people, that's the product on the field, is these players.
Welcome back into Straight from the Pitch, joined as always by Scotty Schweitzer. I'm Anna Witte. It's episode 20, so thank you everyone for staying with us for 20 episodes so far. We've really enjoyed covering NWSL, MLS, and now we're headed to the World Cup. On Sunday afternoon in San Jose, the U.S. women's national team played in their send-off game against Wales. Trinity Rodman was the sub who had 2 goals, 76th minute and 87th minute. So the starting 11 was Nair in goal, Fox and Dunn were the 2 outside backs, Naomi Girma and Alana Cook were the 2 center backs, Lindsey Horan, Andy Sullivan, Ashley Sanchez were the 3 center midfielders, and Alyssa Thompson and Alex Morgan and Sophia Smith were the 3 forwards up top. What were the partnerships, Scotty, that you saw in this game that you liked and maybe you want to see improve a little bit more during the World Cup group stage?
Well, the most impressive, and to be honest, as the game played out, it wasn't the greatest game for us, I don't think, as
Agreed.
the national team. I mean, we got our win, but as the whole day, if you kept watching the show, as a player, you know what's coming after also. Like, you're very in tune to what all the events are, and it was more of an event than necessarily a game, I feel, for the players, and they knew that too. Like, when I was playing, there was days where, okay, tonight's an autograph session for all the fans. So, like, you know, you're going to be sitting on the field afterwards, signing autographs. The fans are going to, and that's like, that takes a toll on you when you're also trying to prepare for a game. It's super hard to do that. So they knew the after of the game too. But as far as the game, the greatest partnership, I thought, and is going to be very dangerous, and I don't even know if she's going to get the start. It was Alyssa Thompson and Crystal Dunn on the left side. They were running havoc over there. There are 2 players that individually can break a player down and break a team down, and they were able to get out wide on the flanks and use the half spaces, but they were also able to beat players. And I think Alyssa Thompson was, really excited being there, being what it was, a send-off game for the World Cup. She's on the World Cup team. I think we all held our breath when she rolled her ankle because it looked super nasty. And then after that, she was a bit hesitant. She still, played hard and tried, but she was hesitant to make hard cuts on that sore ankle. But I thought Dunn and Thompson were by far the best pairing. The other pairing, and we said it last show that I said it, that I thought Alana Cook is a great player, but she's a bit nonchalant. And you saw it when she tried to dribble out of her own 18. But that partnership is a good partnership to watch because they're so athletic and so fast, and they can recover on so many mistakes, which was allowing Dunn was actually getting higher than Fox.
Right.
But it allows those 2 outside backs that free reign to get forward because those 2 center backs are so athletically gifted that they can recover from your mistakes and help the team and solve problems just on pure physical attributes themselves. I still, like I said, I think they're both really good. Girma and Cook are very good. Mm-hmm. Girma's a bit more mature in her play mentally than Cook, and I think Cook is actually has the better skill set. She's just not there, which surprises me, being a Lyon player, being a starter for Seattle, OL Reign. But I just feel, to me, that she's just mentally not always in tune with the game. I personally didn't really like the starting lineup, and I don't think that should be our starting lineup. I think what happened when we got our goals is exactly what we had said. I think our most dangerous front 3 is when, and I know Rodman got central and played the 9, but she also had the ability to slide in and out. And Sophia Smith sometimes. I think Sophia Smith, the 9, Rodman and
Thompson?
No, the Lynn
Williams, yeah.
Lynn Williams. I think should be the starting, because it just puts so much fear in a team's back line. And teams are going to drop. I understand teams are going to drop on us anyway, but they're still fearful of that, and it gives us a little bit more room. I thought at halftime when they interviewed Haran, me personally, I got a little upset what she said. Like, she said, we gotta be better on the transition. Well, you had the ball for 80% of that's what I did too. I said you had the ball for 80%. Well, you're just gonna wait for the 20% of the time when they get it, and then we're gonna attack. Like, we needed faster passing, quicker movements, and getting the ball in and off of our foot. And listen, Vietnam just lost to New Zealand. So there is no chance Vietnam's going to come up and try to play us straight up. They're
Mhm.
going to sit on us. Portugal is going to sit on us. Maybe Holland will say, hey, I think we can play with these guys and have an opened up game. Other than that, teams are just going to drop on us. So we're going to need players that move the ball quicker in these 5, 7, 10-yard gaps so we can break players down, move defenses, and then exploit the spaces that we actually created with our passing. If we're just going to look for over-the-top balls, we're going to have Sophia Smith did it twice and Thompson did it twice. They just dribbled over the end line because they only have like 6 yards of space. And they're all about their speed when they get that push by. The other thing is, I think Thompson can play on either side better than Sophia Smith can. I think Sophia Smith likes to turn inside with her right foot, and that causes her needing to be on the left side of the field to do that. She had a lot of bad touches because it almost looked like she was unsure of her turns because she was on the wrong side of the field.
I could see Sophia Smith more as like a true nine. When she's in Portland and she's having
Yeah.
success, she's better when she's facing up goal. On the right hand side, to your point, like she kept dribbling out of bounds. Her first touch was really difficult for her to take towards goal. She's speedy and she's fast, so put her in the best position where she's been the most successful, which is in the middle of the field, which would take Alex Morgan off the field. And I'm not sure Vlatko Andonovski wants to take Morgan off the pitch, especially early on in the game, or rather early on in the tournament. Two of his captains, I'm sure he wants on the field. I like your point on Crystal Dunn, and I loved how she was getting forward. I think that's what we'll see is Dunn pressing up and Fox being the player who sits back. And in club play, that's what Crystal Dunn is. She does get forward as a midfielder and as a forward, so she understands that and plays that together, rather plays that position normally. The partnership on the back line, I agree with Alana Cook and with Naomi Girma. However, the only thing that's missing between both of them is the vocal leadership. Neither one of them are at that point, and they have to be able to take on that responsibility when they get out of group stage, when they're facing teams who are actually making it difficult for them to actually defend. And will we see Julie Ertz slide into that spot? Vlatko Andonovski did say that Julie Ertz is a step above the Rose Lavelle and Megan Rapinoe's ability to play, which is kind of concerning when it comes to Rose Lavelle. And are we going to see her in this World Cup? Ashley Sanchez, I thought, did fine, but she doesn't bring that dynamic movement, at least against Wales, that they need in the attack. And I think we caught a glimpse. The next question was going to be, what does US have to do to break through a team's back line, or actually just an entire team, because that's what we are going to see. And Haran saying they're going to go in transition. That's not going to happen often, to your point. I mean, Wales only had the ball 20% of the time, so it has to be constant movement. Sophia Smith can play centrally. She can drag wide. I like Trinity Rodman starting, and we probably will see that. I think that was more of a tactical decision that Coach Andonovski wanted to leave her off the field. Not sold on Alyssa Thompson being a starter, and quite honestly, she didn't give me that extra level that I think they need for the World Cup.
I think Alyssa Thompson is a great player, 100%. I agree with you, though, that she is not a starter. She's also a young player that I think if I put her on the bench and say, hey, look, I want you really to watch how this back line's working, what they're doing, what they're seeing, and then what you see when I do sub you in, because she is a spark plug. The team does like having her. Like, they're all big sisters to her. You can see it when she does something good, how they come to her, they hug her, they love to be around her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we said that earlier with Sydney LaRue coming back is going to be a really good thing for Alyssa Thompson, because she's going to take her under her wing and then help her understand this league. But I think that we're doing that same thing with the national team. I agree. Like, we need a player, and we said it ourselves. on the show again. I think we called it when those players that we asked for, the Lynn Williams, the Trinity Rodmans, and the DeMellos to come in. Now, I understand it was later in the game. Wales was fatigued. They've been out of season. It's the first time ever playing outside of Europe. But that group had a little bit more getting forward, had a little bit more attitude, had a little bit more the ability to break this team down and make them scared. Like Trinity Rodman scores on the goal on the outside, getting a ball from Sophia Smith, who had switched and come back inside and was playing basically the 9 and then laid it across, which she could have shot too. And I don't think if she doesn't score, we don't have any gripes with her taking a shot. That's what forwards' jobs are to do. But she does lay it across, and then Rodman puts it away. But that's when the game turned, is when those subs came in. We got a lot more dynamic chances going to goal. We got much better chances, just shots from outside or corner kicks, which we didn't do very good. And that's even though Foudy said it. And I think Foudy is like just a huge fan of Ertz and doing her hardest to get Ertz on the field. But I'm going to agree with her. If we're going to get free kicks, we need offensive free kicks. We need someone who is so dynamic getting the ball off their head. And Ertz is just, she's a ball winner. She gets them. She gets flicks. She gets things taken care of. But as the game went, I think it was more like they were forcing things too. They wanted to put a good show on. They wanted to get a big goal. They wanted to get a big lead, and it just wasn't going their way. And as the game went, that's kind of what other teams are going to have to do in the World Cup against us is as the game gets further and further along, if the U.S. hasn't scored, we get a little anxious, but that also gives the other team a little bit more courage. And the game gets a lot harder for us. And that's what I think we have to be aware of is teams know we're better than them. And when a team knows that they're not as good as you, they get more disciplined. They sit back. They do their jobs better. They work harder. I mean, I thought we were going to beat Wales by 7. But man, did Wales come out. They were tackling. They were playing hard. They were playing in that heat that they had never been. And like in the tackles, man, they just kept getting up and they just wanted to be there. They wanted to play super hard. Now, again, I said, I to the U.S.'s credit, they had that big ceremony afterwards, which for me as a fan was like, okay, as a player, I wasn't all into it, but that's the nature of the business nowadays. They seem to enjoy it, but it almost seemed like they were more excited about that moment than the game at times, just watching the whole thing play out to me. And I just think we need to know exactly that Vietnam game, the starting lineup, should be Vlatko's starting lineup that he thinks he's going to win the World Cup final with. Because we're going to have to play that like, okay, we're going to get a win. We're going to beat Vietnam. We're going to beat Vietnam. So that lineup isn't just like to get people a chance to play here and there. And it seems to me that we're not going to see Rose Lavelle until after group stage.
No.
I don't think so. And I think, again, I understand we might not see her the whole World Cup. And I still say it's an okay pick because of what we know she can do if we can get her healthy. But watching that game play out, and you don't see Ertz get in that game, you don't see Lavelle get in that game, and you don't see Rapinoe get in that game. Those are injuries that are still plaguing these players, and that's the reason we didn't see them, because you would have thought, I personally thought at halftime we were going to see changes. I'm going to get 45 minutes for this player. And that's just pure fitness and speed of play and get some of the anxiousness out before the World Cup, and we never saw it. So those players that didn't get in, I'm going to go with those injuries are a little bit bigger than we thought they were.
Julie Ertz was one that he said if this was the World Cup final, we could have played her. But still, that means she's not at 100%. And she's only played in 7 NWSL games this season. So we haven't seen a lot. She hasn't had a ton of game-like experience. So not getting her in that send-off game hopefully won't be necessarily a negative thing for her play, but something that she can continue to get better and rehab and training. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see who Vlatko Andonovski starts in this upcoming game against Vietnam. And they made it to New England. They made it to Australia, New Zealand. World Cup kicks off in 8 days. So we on the next show will definitely be breaking down a little bit as we get a little bit closer what to expect in this Vietnam matchup. Headed over to MLS.
I will say one thing before we switch.
Okay.
We at least won, and Germany took a loss. And to me, that was just as eye-opening as us struggling a little bit against Wales. But I don't know the ins and outs of what the Germans were going through, but they had a lot of starters starting. So like that's a little bit of a good sign for us as American fans, as an American team, is Germany struggled with their last game too prior to the World Cup, and they played a team that not as good as them, but definitely as athletic. And that seemed to be, as a US team, I would like to watch that film and see what they did to exploit the German defense and get 3 goals on this German team, because we're one in the world and Germany's 2, and we got our win at least. It took us a while. We didn't play great, but we did what we were supposed to. They didn't get what they were supposed to do. They didn't take care of their business, and that, for us as an American fan, that's a good thing to see.
Also in this game against Wales, we saw Lindsey Horan kind of get into it with some players because we knew it was a send-off game. No one wanted to get injured. I think you could tell the Wales players knew that as well. And there was a little frustration in moments. So I think the U.S. was being smart. We weren't seeing them maybe at 100%, but certainly at the 90, 95%. And I think we saw a lot of good things, a lot of great partnerships. But the one that I enjoyed was, like you said, the Alyssa Thompson and Crystal Dunn. I like how Emily Fox and Naomi Girma play next to each other on the back line together. And I think at least defensively, we will be really solid in this World Cup, but a lot of the questions are going to be around the attack. 8 days, we'll see.
Yeah.
Headed over to MLS. Inter Miami's Rodolfo Pizarro has criticized MLS trade policy ahead of Messi's arrival. Now, Pizarro makes $3.35 million a year. He's a designated player. How everything works in MLS and how teams can't necessarily get rid of players and just send them to another club unless they want to. Rather, a player can't just go to another club unless the team allows them to. What did you think of him kind of criticizing how MLS runs things with Messi coming in?
This is something we touched on early shows, maybe second episode, maybe third episode. And I said, the one good thing about all these foreigners coming over is they are going to start to get interviewed about single entity, and how it works and how it's run and how the players basically have zero rights. And again, listen, Messi's going to have rights. He's Messi. Like a lot of times these European foreign players, Wayne Rooney talked about it a couple years ago, where he said there's a lot of great players, but they can't navigate their own career in the MLS because the MLS basically has a stranglehold on them and puts them and moves them where they want to and how they want to. And that's not the best players, because they need their good players to be happy. And I don't mean just good players. I mean designated players.
Right.
These players are bringing over from Europe. So they're making room for Messi, which I totally understand. And I think that's a great thing because we want to all see Messi. And to be honest, Pizarro hasn't held up his end of the bargain in a sense.
Inter Miami's in last place too. So
right, and Inter Miami, and I totally understand that, but like, could you imagine just if you were in the NFL, or if you get waived or cut, you're still getting paid. And I think that's his big thing, is he's going to be just out. My guess is he'll get put on waivers. My guess is no one will pick him up, because when you get picked up on waivers, your contract goes with you. And if he chooses to play in the MLS, he'll have to come back in, redo his whole contract. He'll get paid, if he's lucky, half of what he's making a year, and I doubt he'll get that. It's just, I've been saying it for years. The MLS on the field is a fine product. It is. It could be better for sure, but it's just the way they handle their business. I never played in the MLS, and it's not because I couldn't. And it's not saying like, oh, you just saying that as a player. I turned down 5 offers in the MLS, and 2 of them were at max salary. It's just, I didn't want a league to own me. And that's how the MLS works. That's what single entity is. The team doesn't own Pizarro. The league owns Pizarro. So they can put him and place him and put him wherever he wants to go. And if that doesn't make sense to some of the fans, you need to look into single entity and see what it is. And that's what I was saying. When the foreigners come in, and it usually doesn't happen to them, but if bad things start to happen to the foreigners, they're going to speak out. And it almost came across in his interview that his agent didn't even think to look at the fine lines of the contract because it's not like this. And he's right, in any other country, in any other sport.
If the league owns Pizarro, why, and he is worth around $3.35 million, why wouldn't they put him with Orlando City, for example? Instead of Inter Miami, why wouldn't they allow that contract to continue with a different club?
Like I said, and this is like usually when you don't hold up your end of the bargain, your next contract is not as good as your one you just had
Sure.
because you
That's
haven't proven
anything.
it.
Yeah.
And I always tell players like, or when I was playing and people would say, I'm not signing you a contract to potential. And I would always tell them 100% you are signing me. A contract is based on potential. It doesn't, if I'm a 4-time all-star, then you're still signing me on potential of what I could be. Doesn't mean I'm going to be an all-star in the next year. Doesn't mean I'm going to be a 5-year. But the thought process is you have a better understanding that I can be this good. I can be. But you don't know if I'm going to get hurt. You don't know if I'm going to just be a terrible player. You don't know if I'm 35 years old, am I going to still be good at 36? Because when Father Time hits us, man, it hits us. You don't know when it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, they were going to say, yeah, we might want you to go to Orlando, but we're not paying you three, blah, blah, blah. And this is their way out of paying that $3 million contract. Now you can go to Orlando. Um, but this is the funny thing is if he gets put on waivers and nobody picks him up, okay, his contract won't go, but there will still have to be a deal with Miami to get him. I was telling you, and I can't remember the player's name. A couple years ago, Columbus Crew made a trade with Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
Montreal needed a defender, Columbus Crew needed a forward. The trade was made. Really, Montreal was just getting a payroll off their books. Columbus needed a forward, so it all worked out. They sent this young defender to Montreal. The defender didn't pan out. Within 2 weeks, he was cut and sent home back to the U.S. For a year, he was sitting on his couch. He wasn't playing USL. He wasn't playing anywhere. Columbus got a lot of injuries in their next year. They needed a defender. They said, let's go and get so-and-so. He knows our system. He knows our coaches. He knows our facility. They had to make a trade with Montreal to get this player's rights back to him. Like it's just that's the way the league works. It's all intertwined based on what's good for the front office of the league. So like I understand like we're bringing in not just Messi, Busquets. It sounds like Jordi Alba. They got like Messi's bringing in his basically old team. He's brought his old coach from Barcelona. He's brought his old like and I'm happy about it. It's going to make the league better. It's going to raise the standard. But there are going to be players that now get hurt because of this, because these players, this coach is way more important to the league than this player and this coach. And they're just going to move on from players. And that's my whole thing. And I'll always be an advocate for players' rights because that's the people, that's the product on the field is these players. So yes, we have to protect the league. We have to do these things, but at the same time, we have to protect the players because soon when this gets out, and if now it's happened to Pizarro, so how many friends
Mm-hmm.
does he have and colleagues does he have in Mexico that he's going to tell, hey, don't play in the MLS? I don't care what they're offering because they can take that away from you in a heartbeat. So like we're going to maybe start losing out on players because we do have a huge Mexican fan base, and that's why a lot of Mexican players play in our league because they have a huge fan base. Like it's not going to happen to Carlos Vela because he's doing a lot better
Yeah.
than Pizarro is, and his team's doing a lot better. And it's one of those things where Miami's in last place. If we just push this under the rug, a lot of people just let it slide and go by. If it happens to Messi's when he's here, oh my goodness, all hell's going to break loose. It's going to be a really bad thing. So it's not going to happen to Messi, even if he comes here and he doesn't, put the product on the field, kind of a thing. It's not going to happen. And there's been players that have come from European teams or internationals that haven't produced. But because they haven't produced, it's easy to get rid of them. Like Thierry Henry did his job, Zlatan did his job, Gareth Bale. He would have been one of those players that we could have watched and seen. And now we've already heard Gareth Bale badmouth the MLS and say it's not the same. When they lose, they don't really care. So it's just, I think it's good that we have these foreigners come in, but I think it's also good for the foreigners. They have a leadership role and a hierarchy amongst the players that they should voice their opinions to protect the younger players.
Right. Well, we've seen in other leagues when experienced players come into other leagues and they speak out, it changes things. For example, the NWSL players spoke out and the league is 10 times better than it was a year or 2 years ago. So it's a good thing that players are speaking out. However, in Pizarro's case, let's say he is performing well, but he's a DP on this Inter Miami side and he's worth over potentially $3 million. Let's say he's doing well. Why would MLS want to treat him poorly, quote unquote? And why wouldn't they try and help him get somewhere else? It's not going to work in Miami because of Messi, Busquets, and Alba potentially being there. But if they want to keep him and these high talented players from overseas, why can't they, do that? Or maybe they will.
I think in Pizarro's case, listen, I was a Pizarro fan 7 years ago when he was just up and coming out of the Mexican International. He was playing for the Mexico national team. But when he plays here, and even last year they loaned him out to a Mexican team, he didn't perform well. Like,
True.
He's just not been performing well. So, like, he's an easy hit on this team, I think. And then they might have even asked around, like, hey, does anybody want Pizarro? And, like, a lot of coaches would probably be like, why would we want him? We don't even game plan for him. So, like, I understand, like, people are going to say, like, he's crap. This should be happening to him in a sense. But, like there's a lot of teams in the league that aren't run well. So it's not like all of a sudden I could just go in if I am playing super well as a player and I make this much and I realize, holy crap, I'm the best player on the team. Do I get to go in and say, timeout? This guy's making $3 million and I'm only making $600,000.
Yep.
Oh, I'm not playing unless I make $300 million plus $1 just to be better than him because we don't get that right as players. And listen, when I played, I signed for a contract and then I play. I signed for what I think is the right thing to do. What I think I'm worth. Then I play. As the year goes, I become an all-star. I'm the second, third best player on the team, first best player on the team. Well, as that year goes, everybody's talking contracts with each other as players. So now I know, wait a minute, I'm the best player, second best player, third best player on the team, but I'm making the 20th best salary. I don't get to redo my contract. But what I do is when they try to re-sign me, I'm making all that money back up. Now I'm going to ask for this to make up for what you were paying me. I'm going to try to make that money back up on my next deal. If I get close to or what I want, then I sign. If I don't, then I find another team that is willing to pay me. I have no animosity to what they didn't give me and I deserve from this team. This is a new team. Let's start talking about contract. And I say, hey, listen, within the league, this is what I should make. And this is what I want. And then that's how the negotiations go. It's not like it's a negotiation process, but we as players don't always get to go in and say, hey, I'm killing it right now. Let's do a new deal. We wait till those, and that's how clubs do it. They just wait till the contract runs out. Now, certain clubs might say, we can't lose this guy. Let's renegotiate. Like we're watching it unfold perfectly in Paris with Mbappe. He is not signing a new deal until he gets what he wants because after this year, he's free to go. And PSG knows that. So now PSG is like, if you don't sign this extension, then we have to sell you because that's how we make money.
Right.
So, like, that's the way it works in Europe. And now players have rights. So Mbappe said yesterday, I'll sit the bench. I don't care. I'm getting what I deserve, whether that's the contract I want or you're going to sell me. Sure, you'll make 200 million. And now, because he's spoken out in public, they're not getting 200 million. Everybody's willing to wait a year. And now it's just who's going to pay him the most. Liverpool pulled out. Real Madrid's pulled out. Like, they're going to all go back in, and they're going to go in with less offers to Paris Saint-Germain. If I offered you 200 million for him, now I'm going to offer you 100 million because it's not worth it for me to pay 200 when I can get you for free within 1 year. And that's for me is like now the players have rights. Now the teams have to do better. They need better facilities. They need this because they're going to want me to play there. And we talked about it with the NWSL. Like players are starting to want to go to Kansas City.
Yep.
And they wanted to go there and it wasn't because they went to the finals last year. They're getting a new stadium. They're getting a new practice facility. They're being taken care of there. So this is the place we want to go. And again, NWSL is single entity too. So, but
But
at least go
But
ahead.
it's a little different. Like it's improved with the CBA and players being
Correct.
able, free agency and is happening for the first time this season. That's why we saw Dabinia leave North Carolina for Kansas City. It's like to make it a more American quote unquote sport with the NFL. Remember when Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, he was like, I'm
Right.
done. I'm not coming back. They're not giving me what I want. And everyone was sold on where is Lamar Jackson going to go next. You know, reporters were trying to figure out what was going to be the next right spot. And then the year turns around and the Ravens give him what he asked for and he's back on the roster. So I see what you're saying. Now the next question is, how could MLS get rid of single entity but still protect themselves? Because I think if MLS still didn't have single entity, players were able to make moves and figure out, it would bring a lot of attention to MLS. Like where's Brandon Vasquez going to go now? He's had all this success with the US men's national team. He wants to leave Cincinnati. That would be a conversation and fun to talk about. What systems could he fit in? But how would that keep MLS safe if they were able to get rid of it?
And that's really the best word to say, safe. That's why single entity was put in. So for all the young soccer fans in the United States, there was a league in the United States before the MLS. It was called the NASL. That had the Cosmos, the Fort
Yep.
Lauderdale Strikers. It had the Vancouver Whitecaps. It had I don't know if the Seattle Sounders were in it, but the Tacoma Stars were in it. Like they had a team. Pele. We're all talking about Messi coming in. Well, Pele was the first. Cruyff came over. Beckenbauer. Well, in the league, the New York owner had by far more money than everybody else. So he got Pele, Cruyff, Canaglia, Bogi Bogovic, Eskandarian, Carlos Alberto. Like they had just this massive, unbelievable dream team. Well, in the league, Elton John got involved with the LA Aztecs and people got involved, but they just couldn't have the money. So what they were doing were they were trying to buy players and teams started to fold because they were going bankrupt. So single entity was put in the MLS to make sure that teams wouldn't fold because it would be a terrible look for this brand new league. Well, now we see we have 30 teams in the league. Our owners are billionaires,
Right.
or if they're not billionaires, there's 10 guys together that over $1 billion with all their wealth. The league's not going to fold. It's not going anywhere. We've established ourselves. So single entity now is okay if we kind of start to dismantle it a little bit to give these players more rights. Because with the Messis coming over, with the Busquets, I don't care what age they are. Listen, nobody's really talking about it, and it kind of went under the radar. But Minnesota just signed. His name is, God, let me get it wrong because it's a funny name, Pukki or something like that. He's a Swedish player or a Finlandish player, but he played in the English Premier League, and he's good. He's a really good quality, high intelligence forward, a number 9. He's a little different. He's a little short, bald-headed guy. He's really good. So players are wanting to come check this MLS thing out. But when they come, they're going to be like, wait, what? I can't do really good this year and then say, hey, you know what? Minnesota was nice, but I'd sure like to play here. He's not going to be able to do that. So we're going to start to lose these high quality foreign players. We're not, listen, not a lot of people know this, but the MLS should have folded like 5 years in. But the Anschutz and the Hunts put their own money up and made the league stay. They paid other teams salaries. They kept the league alive, and because they knew where the future could go if we could just get a little bit of that snowball effect, which has happened. Well, we don't need that anymore. It's a good established league. It's a different league. It's a high pace. It's a powerful league. I said it to you earlier, a couple episodes back, but just between me and you, I said, man, I think this is going to be good that Miami's in last place because now there's no pressure on Martino. There's no pressure on Messi. There's no pressure on Busquets. There's no pressure on Alba. Come in, learn the league, learn the travel, learn this, learn the temperatures, learn the different time of year you have to play that you've never played in. And next year, let's make a run at it, Miami. I think it's good where Miami sits right now. So these 4-5 players, whoever they bring in else, gets a little bit of time to understand what they're dealing with. And then next year is like, okay, let's really ramp it up, kind of a thing. But I don't think they need to be single entity anymore. The problem was when you lose single entity, you lose power, and I think the league likes to have the power. It's kind of like whenever there's a collective bargaining agreement in the NFL, and we're like, oh god, this is going to be close to strike time. It's like, man, it goes long times because the players have a good lawyer, the owners have a good lawyer, the commissioner is like sits in between, but who's he really fighting
Mm-hmm.
for? He knows the players make him money, but he knows the owners are the ones who control his if he's got a job or doesn't have a job. So like it gets into a little messy, but I think that's part of it to help the product on the field. And every time it all gets worked out, it's always better season next year for us as the fans. So I understand why single entity was put in, and I understand what it controls. But I think it's time that if we're really going to go for it as a league where we want a lot of players coming, then we have to start making some minor changes where the players have more control.
You make a good point with a good player going to Minnesota, for example, a great international player. In the NFL, all of the players, at least 99%, are Americans who were born, raised, played football here in the States, understand how America works, what Minnesota can provide a family, and what South Beach can provide a family. And with MLS, I could understand why they'd want to keep single entity because it would be harder to keep an international player in Minnesota when they have the ability to go to Los Angeles and play. That would be the only thing if I were in the front office with the MLS that I would put my foot down and say, no, I don't want to get rid of it because they still need talent in Minnesota to compete. No shade on Minnesota. It's a great place. It's beautiful. It just can be pretty chilly. And it doesn't have what LA provides, what Miami, what New York provides, and what all these international people think America is. And I think that would be the only thing that would keep MLS with this single entity deal.
Well, agreed. So like, and yes, a lot of when you're a professional soccer player, you got 2 hours of practice with the team, maybe three with, rehabbing and
Film and all
icing and
that.
massages and film sessions. Maybe you get three. And it's not every day that you're getting three because they do want you to get home and rest. So you do have a lot of downtime. But as a player, you could say, okay, you're going to play in LA, but the facility's crap, the stadium's crap. This is so I don't care how awesome the city is. If Minnesota has the best stadium, the best practice facility, the best workout facility. And I mean, the Dallas Mavericks, for the longest time, nobody wanted to play there. Mark Cuban takes the team over. He's got tons of money, and they always talk about how awesome the Mavericks facilities are and what they do. You look at the Washington Spirit. Kang takes over the team. Good God, look at what she's done. She's looking to build her own stadium. She's bringing in the best medical staff. Like players want to go to DC, not because it's the best city, it's because they're taking care of the best.
Well, we
And
made a good
that's
example
where
with Kansas City too, right? Like who wants to go to Kansas City, Missouri when you're from Sweden and you want to experience maybe what Angel City has to provide, but because they have the
Davinia.
facilities. Yeah, Dabinia,
Davinia
prime
is the perfect
example.
example. Like
True.
North Carolina. Live in North Carolina. It takes me an hour to get to the beach. It takes me an hour to get up into the mountains.
Right?
It takes me an hour to get to the farmland. Like I have everything I want. What do I want? It's an hour away. I've been to Kansas City. They have good steak.
Good
There's
barbecue.
not if I maybe I can get to good barbecue. Maybe I can get to a football game if I can get tickets. They have a good football
Yes.
team. What we have North Carolina, it's an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to the Charlotte to watch a great an NBA game, an NFL game. You got all the colleges, so you can always see a great. And it's not just they have colleges. We have NC State, we have Duke, we have Chapel Hill, we got Wake Forest, like great teams in their respected sports. Like you have all these things around you, you have everything there available to you in North Carolina. Why would you want to leave it? They're not just leaving it because someone's paying them more. They're leaving it for the facilities. And that's where I'm saying in the European, a lot of times people are not just picking their teams based on how good the team is. They're picking it based on how good the quality is when I'm there in trainings, how good the facilities are, my locker room is, my weight room is, the training grounds, how close are the training grounds to where I live, how then I have the facility itself. Like a lot of people are in AC Milan is in trouble right now because they have not redone that stadium. They have not. You watch an AC Milan and you get a fan's perspective. The stadium shakes and wobbles because it's so old. Like that's
Mhm.
why in our sports in America, like why aren't Oakland staying in Oakland? They've been there forever because they're not getting what they need from the stadium. So they're willing to leave because if they leave and they go to Vegas, they're going to have a brand new stadium. Players are going to want to play in a brand new stadium. They have brand new facilities. Everything's much nicer. I watched the back in the NWSL. I forget what the 30-30 was called about all the girls trying to bring it up. Like we've done all this work to have these great leagues. Nobody wants to be in a garbage can icing. We want to be in a real good cold jacuzzi. We want to be in when we're injured. We want to know we're going to get as fast as we can back on the field. And
Mhm.
I think single entity allows teams to be like, we don't have to do anything. You signed here because you were a rookie, and now we have you. We've got you. And a lot of times in single entity, when you sign your contracts, in other pros, it's like I'm going to make 30 million, 40 million, 45 million, 50. In the MLS, you sign a 1 year deal worth whatever it is, NWSL, whatever it is, with 3 year options. And I
Yeah.
think it's a 10% raise each time or something. But it's the club's option to pick up. It's not the player's option to pick up. And that's, and again, like if in my first year I'm an all-star, why am I only getting a 5%, 10% raise on my contract? I should be able to renegotiate, but I can't. Like it only happens when I think Germa just did her extension early, but it's Germa. Like
Right.
not every player is going to be Germa, but like that's where it becomes now we have an agent. That's why we have agents. Like the coaches have agents. It always seemed to me when I was playing and I was like, get offered a contract. And I said, well, I'm going to send it to my agent. They're like, yo, you got an agent. Oh my God. Why is your agent? Like, well, you have an agent. The GMs have agents. The coaches have agents. Like that to me is like, that's all part of the game that we're playing. And we should be allowed to play the game equally.
Yeah, and I think too, with the mentioning of the facilities being nice and everything, you have to remember these are players, professional players. That's what they want the most out of the city, out of the experience that the place provides. And I think that's something that in NWSL and in MLS, that as we see more of these clubs bring in high dollar ownership who can provide those new things, they can skew away from the single entity deal. It'll be interesting to see what happens to Pizarro once Messi actually announces and legally is here to play in the States and in MLS. Speaking of Messi, the Gold Cup final is being played Sunday. Now, if the U.S. men's national team is there, it'll be at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. That's where we could see the unveiling of Messi happen and his former teammates in Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba if they come to Inter Miami. Would be really interesting to see how that works as a broadcast, what that unveiling would actually look like. Would he be here? Now, we talked about it before the show, and my thought on it was there's a lot of MLS players playing with the U.S. men's national team in Gold Cup. Bringing in Messi is going to bring a lot more eyeballs on MLS. I think it's a great thing that the unveiling would happen during the Gold Cup game because it brings eyes to America. It'll obviously bring eyes to Messi and to the Inter Miami team, but also to players who don't have the privilege to have a ton of eyeballs on them from a world perspective. It'll be interesting to see if it even does happening. It's all speculation as of right now, but would you like to see the unveiling happening at a Gold Cup final? Now, that's to say the men's national team might not even be there. They likely will be. But would you like to see it then, and why?
Me, I again, and I still to this day, even though I'm 51 years old, in my head I'm a player. So I always go towards the player. And I'm feeling like if I was on that national team, the Messi unveiling is because we don't trust that my ability on the field is going to get enough viewers. So they want more viewers.
Probably
And
doesn't.
I
Like,
understand.
it might not you specifically, but like what's happening right now and with the talent that they have, maybe it's not. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just to me is like why doesn't Messi? I thought it was bad that Berhalter got reannounced during the Nations League. Like, why am I getting this at halftime? I want to hear about. I don't want to hear these guys talk about Berhalter getting the coach. I want to hear what they're just saw it the first half, the ins and outs, break the game down for me. That's why I watched the game. I'm breaking it down in my head because I've played the game, I've coached the game, but there's a lot of fans that they need these commentators to help explain the game to them. So now we're going to get the Messi thing, and how much time is going to be spent on the first half of the game that I just watched. Oh, and you're right. Hopefully it is the US. Like, I've been very down on the Gold Cup, just the quality of play and what's been going on the field. And I talked to you about it, but like, I just read that ESPN article and I was like, man, I should be taking it for this crazy chaotic, because all the teams are just, it's just almost chaos out there. That US Canada game was just mayhem. Like, but you couldn't turn it off. It wasn't because it was high quality soccer. It was just so intense, so fast, mistakes happening. There were people, are we recovering from the mistakes? Are we getting punished for mistakes? Like, it was just like, and that's what the Gold Cup is right now, is just like I said when I was watching it, I was like, this is like two high quality college teams going back and forth at each other. Like, no slowing the game down, no settling this thing and feeling each other out. It was just like, blow that whistle, wind us up, go. And like, because and as you watched it, you're like, you have to take it for that, because in the game he subbed two center backs. Like, how many times do you see any backs get subbed in or out? And it wasn't like we were losing. He subbed backs, and the game was, we were winning. Then he subbed two. Who subs two center backs in a game ever? It's usually because of injury or because we're down a goal and there's only 5 minutes, 6 minutes left, and we need a goal. So we're going to take out a defender. We're going to put an offensive attacking play. But that's not why it was being done. He was making changes like, let's see everybody. Let's get everybody out there and see what we got. And just, we're building for the future. And I'm okay with that now. Like, as I dive into every game that I've watched, it's just like, maybe all these teams pretty much are seeing the 2 or 3 players, because that's really all I've seen, maybe 2 or 3 players that could maybe jump into the full squad and maybe take somebody's spot. Or we have some young players that we need to see, and we need to get the information back to their club coaches to say, this is what they need to work on, and tell them this is what you need to work on. And if you do so within a year, 2 years, we'll be able to pull you up. If you don't, there's somebody else waiting in the wings. That's the way the national team kind of works its way. And we're seeing that with the women's team.
Right.
That's the way it works. Here's what you need to work on. Here's what you need to do. These players are on their way out. There's nothing they can do about it. They're just getting to that age. So if you do this, you're in. If you don't do this, we got these couple guys. Like, we had 4 different center backs in one game. So we have center backs available that we need to be looking at, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that with the Messi thing is just like, and I get it, like, we need right now to take every opportunity in the sense that we can to publicize that Messi's coming, to get more fans. I mean, listen, you can't buy a Miami ticket home or away right now because they're all sold out. So that's a good thing. I just think, like, why not designate? Listen, LeBron James did the decision and we all watched it. It wasn't during an NBA game. It wasn't at halftime of a game. It was, if you're going to do it, then do it before the game, kind of like when they do the NBA lottery. When they do the NBA lottery, it's before a big playoff game.
But they're not going to do it before for ratings reasons, because they'll think they can get people to watch a little bit of the first half. And then if they are so excited, Messi's here, let's get some soccer in, we're going to catch some of the second half action. So from a business perspective, I get the halftime thing.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I totally understand. They're
Right.
trying to get people to watch. And I'm saying, but they're also telling me, the player on the national team, that I'm not really good enough to get people to watch. Like, that's a slap in the face too. And that's where I see it as, like, because I also think people are going to flick and back and forth from their channels and say, okay, halftime, leave it on the US game. Halftime's over. Good. Let's go back to watching, Golden Girls, whatever. They're going to switch the channel because they don't want to watch that product. They just wanted to see the Messi thing. So I think that's going to be, and again, I understand how businesses work and how, what you want to do. But to me is like, I think they could get the rights to the Messi thing. You Apple TV, here's a great opportunity. Do it on Apple TV. You own the MLS. That's where he's coming. So why not just do an event? And like I said, I totally get it. But as a player, you're like, and is is the unveiling going to be in a timely manner, or hey, this halftime is going to be an extra 15 minutes because when you listen to the Super Bowl players, like that's their big complaint. Halftime's way longer because they have the halftime show. It's not normal and they don't like it. So is this halftime going to be the normal time, or is it going to have to go a little longer? And now there's a whole bunch of whoever we're playing. If we're playing Jamaica, Jamaica's not getting. Why do they have to wait? He's not coming to play in the Jamaican league. He's coming to play in an American league in the MLS. And this is U.S. soccer, not MLS. It just goes to show you, though, don't be fooled that U.S. soccer and MLS are basically the same thing. That's what fans need to realize is U.S. soccer and the MLS, they're the same entity. They are working together or like really working together. Sunil Gulati was the head of U.S. soccer for a long time, but he also worked for the New England Revolution. To me, that seems like a conflict of interest. That's the way it works. They're intertwined into each other, and they need each other to survive. So, like, we're going to see Messi being announced for the MLS in the United States during a U.S. soccer game, which is I understand he's coming to the U.S., but there's also another team playing that's
No,
not American.
right. And I totally understand your perspective and get your side. And you mentioned LeBron James and how he did that whole show of, I'm going to South Beach. He announced his thing. People still quote him from that. MLS doesn't have the eyeballs that LeBron James and NBA has. So I don't think if they did something separate, and you mentioned Apple TV, people would have to pay for Apple TV. And I don't think they'd pay for Apple TV just to see Messi announce something and it's going to be on Twitter 2 seconds later. Using the Fox platform and a primetime game and a Sunday evening afternoon match in Los Angeles has so many of the flashy things that LeBron James sit down had offered for the NBA that MLS and Apple TV doesn't have, because Apple TV did a sit down with Martino when he came to Inter Miami and it got eyeballs on it, but it certainly is not going to get the casual fan eyeballs on it that Fox, a mainstay linear television, everybody has Fox, everybody's going to be able to tune into it. And who knows, that could give fans that are like, oh, wow, this is legit happening. Messi's coming to Inter Miami, the ability to turn around and want to pay that, what is it, $20, $80 a year for Apple TV and actually want to watch the latter half of the season. That would be my only argument. And I understand it from a player's perspective. It makes you think they don't think I'm good enough to bring a product. Maybe it's the truth for right now. And maybe that's
understandable.
Yeah. And I get it from a player's perspective.
For me, though, the MLS and Apple are in a business deal, too. So, like, throughout the year, you kept seeing, we're giving another free month of Apple. As a consumer, I was saying to myself, not enough people are watching. They're going to give us more free so more people tune in, and then maybe of those people that tune in like it. So why not say we're going to do a free day of Apple,
Sure. You got to download up. You got to download it.
And now you've downloaded it. And while I'm doing this MLS that Messi's coming, I'm also going to say you can get 75% off for the rest of the year to subscribe to Apple. And maybe that's one way Apple can get more people to subscribe to the MLS games. Listen, I've downloaded the Apple app. I have the season pass, and I still barely watch the MLS games because the NWSL games conflict, and they're better games for me to watch. And that's the simple truth is like we said earlier, I think the last show, if the product is better, more people are going to watch. So there's going to be a lot of people like, and then you could gauge it, or maybe they don't want to do it because Messi's going to get part of that Apple deal because that's part of his deal. That, oh my God, if we did it on Apple, then he's going to see a direct result of how many more people joined. But that would also be good for the MLS, and that would also be good for Apple to see, holy cow, we gave a free day. And then we also said on that free day, if you sign up today, within 30 minutes after this unveiling, you can get 75% off the rest of the season pass. But now Messi's representation is going to know that, hey, where's my money? Because I'm supposed to get a whatever split of that because that's part of my contract here that Pizarro didn't have in his contract.
True. And people would be able to see the other content that other teams are putting out. And once you buy Apple TV, there is a ton of really fun feature content outside of just game day matches. So agree to disagree on this one. I see your side. I don't know. I really hope we see the unveiling. I hope it's finalized so that we can actually start talking about Messi like he's going to be here, and we can actually get a date and a game that we can all expect to see him.
Yeah, it's starting to get dragged along a little bit
It
because
is.
he's vacationing and he's in some beach somewhere, some beautiful beaches somewhere, and now he's coming to Miami, but he's not in Miami at the beaches. So but things, at least it looks like it's going the right direction. He's got his coach in place. It looks like Busquets is a signed deal. It looks like Alba's coming. Like it
Yeah.
looks it's getting a lot closer than the beginning stages. But man, this is starting to get dragged out.
Yeah. Hopefully it happens within the week. And the Gold Cup semifinal is tonight for the US men's national team at 7:30. They're playing against Panama in San Diego at Snapdragon Stadium. So we'll keep all our eyeballs on that one before Sunday's match. Moving on to NWSL, we're starting to run out of time. So quickly, this new Angel City head coach, Becky Tweed, is now on a 5-game undefeated streak. She beat the top of the table, North Carolina Courage, Sunday night, 2-1 with an own goal and a goal from Savannah McCaskill, who needed that confidence boost getting a goal. I have loved Becky Tweed and how she's carried herself, she was an assistant coach. She got the interim job. I do hope she's here to stay with this Angel City side because you could see the energy and the uptick and the small changes she made to the starting 11 really helped this team be successful, putting Jasmine Spencer back into the starting 11 and not using her as a forward, putting her on the back line and allowing her to get up and down the flank. Even if she's just an eyeball that North Carolina has to keep an eye out for, they did that well. And they really targeted Kiki Pickett and kept the ball away from Ryan Williams, who's become a really strong outside defender. Going at Pickett and continuing to drive at her, putting balls inside the box, Angel City eventually found a result. And defensively, they didn't have to do as much work because North Carolina did not outpossess them by the end of the game. At the beginning of the game, I think it was a 60-40 possession in Angel City's favor. Really impressive what Becky Tweed has done for this Angel City side. And I think it's a bummer that we're going into this international break and it's going to be Challenge Cup games and we won't see an actual regular season game for Angel City until August 19th against Racing Louisville, who likely won't have Savannah DeMello, depending on what happens at the World Cup. But Becky Tweed is who I would love to see stay at Angel City. Not only what she's done on the field, but how she's carried herself off the field, how she speaks to media, how she's very transparent with the whole thing. And the biggest thing that she said when it came to like tactical changes, is she going to make any changes on the field based on them not getting results and sitting at the bottom of the table? She said, not really. The biggest thing was that Angel City's training and how they would practice, the intensity was just completely taken up a notch. And I could see that having been the problem for this season because it translated so well onto the field. They just got so sluggish at the 60th minute. And it hasn't happened underneath head coach Becky Tweed.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was a huge win. And having national team international players, not having international players, that still was a massive win because the week before, Carolina showed that, you know what, we don't need all our international players to play the same brand of soccer and still have a super high quality product put
Correct.
on the field. What I also like is you're right, she makes these fine little adjustments player wise. She took Nielsen and moved her out of the middle and moved her wide to cover for their outside back, who she's even said we have seen nothing close to what we're about to see from Vanilla. Is that how you say her name?
Vignola, yeah.
Vignola,
Vignola.
that she's going to be a national team player, which I totally agree with her in the coming years. But instead of usually you like, just make just a different switch, but instead she moved Nielsen to the outside, brought a different center back in to pair with Gordon. You're right, she had Spencer in there. But what she also does, and when really it shows a really high quality coach, is she can take the other team's strength and turn it into a weakness. So
Mm-hmm.
what they did do was when Carolina started to attack and have possession, when they lost it, Carolina, they attacked out. They were attacking tons of times on Williams' side because Williams is the back that likes to get forward. So it was only on counters. When
Right.
LA Angel City had possession and were moving forward, they attacked Pickett.
Right.
When they countered, they attacked Williams because Williams is usually the outside back that gets high. So like you see, Williams was always chasing back at the game. And by the end of the game, Williams hadn't come forward as much because she was exhausted. Plus, she had a yellow card
Yeah, she was
for
fouling a lot.
she had to because she was always chasing the game. They always countered on her side. They not always, but for a lot so that was definitely a game plan. When Williams comes forward, they don't always complete every pass. They don't always score. Do your job. But when we win it, look to counter on Williams' side. Then she'll be chasing back. And that was a huge platform to say, wow, this coach is watching film, watching team strengths and weaknesses, and understanding how to attack to win the game. It doesn't say that we can't win. The other thing that she has done is early in the year, and I've been a big Angel City fan. I think they have tons of quality players, but you could tell they were looking for the mistake to happen. When are we going to lose? When are we going to give it up? This new team is like, when is it going to go our way? She's changed the mentality and how they think. They're not scared that they're going to fail. They know they're going to. They know they're going to accomplish their test. They're going to have mistakes. They're going to have problems, but it's not like, oh, here it goes. Here goes the game. We're done. We're going to lose. They know they're going to win. They don't know how all the time, but they know they're just going to keep going. And if that's the ramping up the intensity in training, but now their mentality is completely different. They know they can win, whereas before it looked like they were just waiting. Yeah, we might be the better team, but we're going to lose somehow, some way. It's going to break down. She has changed their mentality that we are the team to beat on this field. This is our game, and it's going to go our way. It might not go our way the way we think it is, but at the end of the day, we're going to come out on top. And I think that's one of her greatest attributes is she's changed this team's mentality.
Angel City will take on Portland on July 29th, which will be a Challenge Cup game. However, their first regular season game will be against Racing Louisville on August 19th. So it'll be really fun to see like these small tweaks that Becky Tweed continues to make with her side. And as she gets more time and gets more confidence underneath her players, I think they have a really high potential and a high ceiling to bump into a playoff spot now that they're in the 10th spot. Heading on to celebration of the week, the final thing is Savannah DeMello getting her first cap with the U.S. women's national team. She came in for Ashley Sanchez in the 63rd minute. Didn't provide too much. I think at that point of the game, it was just plug and play, and she was good and fit into the system. But I think as this World Cup goes on, they'll continue to use her, and the confidence that she has coming off of a great season so far with Racing Louisville, how she's a facilitator by herself. She can find ways to beat people alone, but now that she has so many talented players around her within this national team system, she will definitely be elite. So kudos to DeMello for getting her first cap in a send-off game before heading overseas. Should be a player that everyone should keep an eyeball out this summer.
Yeah, I agree. She was I think she was a bit anxious, who wouldn't be
Sure.
in their
She
very
looks
first
so
cap.
nervous.
Yeah, she didn't play like herself. The thing that will really, I think that's good that she got it out of the way. Good, get it out of the way. It's a game that really didn't mean anything,
No.
in a sense. So good. She got to put the uniform on. She got to get subbed in. She got to hear the fans cheer for her. That's fantastic. The thing that she has to do is um, she cannot be a role player. She's a leader in Louisville. That's what's making her great. She cannot take a step back from that. Yes, you're on a team that has a lot of alphas. You're an alpha too. Be an alpha. Don't be a player that's just looking to play a role for this team. This team needs you to be on the forefront, to be on the push, to attack, to be who you are. If you're that's the best thing for the U.S. national team. If we get the Savannah DeMello that puts the team on her back, doesn't mean she has to, but she has to play like that. She has to have that attitude. And this game, she didn't, but I don't think it's because she was deferring to any other players. I think it was just, holy cow, I finally got here. Like, I could only imagine what that felt like to be in your first game for the national team is not just a game, a tour or whatever. It's the send off to your first World Cup that you're going to play in, and it's your first international cap. Like, I just think that was just great for her, but she was also just like, the situation was just crazy. And I think we'll see a different player at the World Cup for sure, but she can't be a player that defers. She has to be a player that you were picked for your skill set, for your personality, for who you are. Don't change. It's just how do we all fit together? And that in a sense is not necessarily her job. It's Vlatko's job to make sure that goes on. Uh, and again, it was a send off game. So like just looking at some of his substitutions in that game, but you're also looking at, are we getting fitness? Are we getting this? It was good to get the team together, let them be around each other. So we're not going to critique too much of his subbing in this game in a sense because of the type of game it was. But I think a lot of if we do good or bad is going to be a lot on his shoulders. It's not just the players this year. He's going to have to make a lot of key decisions and difficult decisions. And I've been saying it, he is a very safe coach. And sometimes safe is a big problem in this game. You got to take risks. And I'm hoping he's willing to take enough risks that wins us this World Cup, because no matter how it comes across when I talk, I am a U.S. citizen and I am a U.S. soccer fan, men and women. But I don't want us to ever settle for anything on either side. I think we're the best team in the world, and now we need to go improve it, and we need to play like it, and our coaches need to coach like it.
It'll be interesting to see Savannah Bello, and I completely agree. They need to use her in the sense, and that's the only reason they brought her is because of what she's done at Racing Louisville in the 2023 season. No NWSL games this upcoming weekend. It is their international break, but there is plenty of MLS to watch. We have Gold Cup tonight, potentially Gold Cup this weekend, and we will be back next Wednesday. Make sure to follow us at Straight From the Pitch SFTP Pod on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You can watch us on YouTube every single week and listen to us wherever you get your podcast. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Have a great week.